astonishes me how little our children know about food and where it comes from and why it's important in public schools, in private schools, in universities. It's not common knowledge to teach about food. I started this project because I want to help connect children to food.
I think one of my kind of wake-up calls about food, there's been a few, but one of them actually happened on a field trip with some kids from the daycare where I work at, and we were at Remlinger Farms, and there was a little tour of like barn animals and stuff like that, and we passed a brown cow, and one of the little girls said, "Look, that's where chocolate milk comes from." And
I think it's important to teach students about food because I feel like it's fundamental to human life and human health. And somehow we've gotten to a point where it's actually possible to grow up and not be educated about food.
I think mainly the first reason why it's really important to be hands-on learning about food is because you don't really understand what it means to grow food by just reading it in a book. On a more nutritional side, if you grow your own food, like I know kids who won't eat anything that's like green, but if they grow it themselves, they'll pick off a piece of kale and eat it just because they grew it. So it's also a way to increase nutritional education.
The things we love is when we know that kids are learning and they're so excited that they say things like, "This is the best day of my whole life," or "I want to live here."
That's a really big question. There's a lot of reasons why teaching kids about food is important. Like getting them excited about like dirt and worms and food, and maybe making this connection that food doesn't come from a grocery store, it comes from dirt. And recently we have had this awesome partnership with a local elementary school with a bunch of third graders who come on a really regular basis.
I'm Cheryl Adams. I'm Sage Kleinhans.
I'm Emily Thilo, and I am a third grade teacher. So what was that, like 2 years ago, year and a half ago now, we met as a team and decided to move towards project-based learning. And we decided on the theme of what's for dinner, which is the question that Michael Pollan asked himself when he started to write The Omnivore's Dilemma.
When we were going through our curriculum calendar, we looked at the standards we had to meet, because all planning comes from meeting those standards. And food was just a lens that we accessed all of that through.
You know, integrate it into basically everything we do has some sort of food focus. From the stories that they write to the stories that they read.
Up getting our school garden going.
To the conversations we have about what is food, where does it come from.
How geography affects culture and how culture changes over time.
Our cultural history around food, what did our grandparents eat when they were kids.
We talked about the economy of food and what people eat throughout the world, and kind of how our food choices affect us financially, physically, right, and how environmentally. Why does eating healthy cost more? Or actually started out asking, does eating healthy cost more? There's just so many little powerful lessons that it's hard to kind of pinpoint one thing.
Part of project-based learning in a classroom is doing a community partnership, and so we thought about how we could bring the kids into the community in a really meaningful way, and I started exploring different ideas of different farms in the area.
All right. Yeah.
The UW Farm has kind of a twofold mission. One is just to have a place for a dialogue about different food issues, from social justice to different ways to make a compost pile. And the actual physical work of add compost to a bed and make a bed and plant carrot seeds, and then in a couple months eat one of those carrots. And that's just really exciting. That's just like a totally different experience, and it's something that you can't really learn in a class. It's something that you really have to actively participate in.
Our volunteer work at the farm was key in so many other things that we did throughout the year, so many other learning experiences. Just the experiences allowed them to come to all these conclusions on their own, and it was so powerful. And when it came time to do the plants unit, like they aced the pretest because they had been living this kind of plant experience. So.
Well, my name's Lisa Taylor. I'm the program manager for children's education here. I manage the children's garden programs out of the Good Shepherd Center. Our children's tour program, which is our field trip program, it's our tour program during the school year and our summer camp during the summer, takes place in our original children's garden here at the Good Shepherd Center. These are hands-on programs for kids who are like barely walking to about 14 years old. We invite them into the garden. We give them hands-on opportunities, and they actually help us make the garden every year. So the garden back there is really made for, by, and with children, and that's a big part of our philosophy. So we have learning gardens all around Seattle, so the folks that come and experience programs with us are varied, depending on the neighborhood where our garden is. The traveling show that we do, which are our mobile classrooms, they're lessons that travel out to area schools. They're centered around soil and worms and recycling. And these are lessons that are great for classrooms that can't make it out to our site. And this is a way that schools can get some hands-on experience with real garden educators without all of the expense and hassle of putting a field trip together.
Islandwood is an environmental education camp on Bainbridge Island.
So during the school year, we have school overnight program groups from throughout the Puget Sound area, and we might get between 100 and 150 kids that are generally 4th through 6th graders. And so 2 of those groups each week get to do the Soil to Snack program.
And when we'd go into the garden, we'd do a tasting tour, so we'd walk around and we'd show the kids how to harvest things, and they tried everything from, like carrots, beets, beet greens. We had some peppers. There was actually a fig tree. And then they also had a cob oven outside, and they had some cooking base camps where the kids made everything from scratch. They would harvest that morning, and then they'd make something for lunch. And it was super exciting to see kids enthusiastic about eating healthy food and also just like taking control of what they were making and knowing exactly where their ingredients came from. So that was pretty inspiring to see.
I mean, food is everything. Looking out to the horizon and problem solving in a changing environment and has really kind of opened my mind up to not only the possibilities of how educators can shape how we teach and where we teach, but also has opened my mind up to the real criticisms of standardized education today.
To me, one of the fundamental facts of food and the environment that I really want students to come away with is understanding that right now, the way our food system works, the way we grow our food, is probably the single most destructive environmental thing that we do on our planet. By starting to improve a person's relationship with food, inherently we are also trying to improve the way in which that food is grown. So that's not only making people healthier, it's also making the planet healthier. And I think that's a really fundamental concept. The way we grow food now isn't the best way to do it.
Well, for me, the reason to garden together really isn't about learning gardening skills per se. It's about learning how to care for living things. We want to teach folks how to care for this great planet and how to care for themselves and others. We think that's a pathway to peace, and that really is the crux of our philosophy. We want to teach peace. We want to teach peaceful ways to get along, peaceful ways to be with the environment. And that's our main thing. We use the garden as our vehicle. So in the process of tending a garden, we're able to teach all these things, which is really, really awesome.
I want parents to be teaching their kids about food and how important it is for their bodies. I want teachers to be teaching kids about food and how important it is to culture and global landscapes and science and math techniques. I want future teachers to be taught that teaching about food is a really great way to teach Common Core standards, and I want the public to know that growing your own food isn't really that hard, and it's not just something that our grandparents did, it's something that we can do right now.
1, 2, 3, 4. Sunshine, I'd really like to tell you, oh my sunshine, even though your skies are blue, you're drying up my bed. How can I get any rest now? Sha la 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 la.